Hello, this is Brian Scuttle with Sonic Cinema, and doing a quick take after I watched the 60th anniversary presentation of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, which, if you've followed me over the years on Sonic Cinema, you will know I think Vertigo's the greatest movie I've ever seen. I've felt that way long before Sight and Sound put it at the top of their 2012 critics list. It's and it proved again tonight why the movie is so beloved, why I loved it so, and have been impacted by it ever since I saw it in 1997. I unfortunately missed the 1996 reissue. I really wanted to see it, but I missed it in theaters. There's so much to talk about with this movie. One thing that occurred to me during the opening sequence or the sequence where Scotty, played by James Stewart, is first tailing Madeline, played by Kim Novak, in what I would consider one of the greatest performances of all time. I think it's definitely top three or top five greatest performances of all time. And it is probably my favorite performance of all time. It's that great. But one thing that occurred to me watching that sequence tonight was, if you think about it and if you've seen the movie, once you actually know the reveal that occurs more than an hour into the movie after Scotty first meets Judy, you really see that honestly, you kind of there's not really a reason why you shouldn't see that coming early on. It's actually it's not completely telegraphed by Hitchcock and his screenwriters, but the fact of the matter is, it's not really that surprising when you really boil down to it. It kind of makes sense that that's the point of it because of the fact that Kim Novak plays both Madeline and Judy. It shouldn't be a surprise when Judy reveals to us that she was the one that was leading Scotty on sort of this wild goose chase, tailing Elster's wife. And the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In fact, the great thing about this film is Gavin Elster is probably the most insidious Hitchcock villain of all time. And he only has one moment where he does something truly wicked and truly villainous, and it's seen in flashback. There's nothing up until that moment that he does that is truly evil or bad. But he's easily the most malevolent villain I think Hitchcock ever came up with, because he destroys not just Scotty's life, not just Judy's life, but he also destroys Midge's life. And the feelings and longing that Midge, played by the great Bel Geddes, feels for Scotty, because she knows by the time that he sees her she sees him with Madeline for the first time, that he's never going to feel the same way about her that she feels about him. And the film is famously about romantic obsession, and the thing is, Midge gets kind of forgotten in that discussion, but she's kind of an important figure in there. I mean, yes, she's got wonderful moments of comic relief, but she's also somebody who's deeply scarred by the events of Vertigo. And this is a film about trauma, and it's a film about trying to pick up the pieces of your life after trauma. That's what Judy is doing when she agrees to go out with Scotty. It's what Scotty is doing when he first sees Judy. And it's just really an amazing piece of storytelling on the part of Hitchcock that all of this comes through and is as impactful as it is. And a big part of that is the score by Bernard Herrmann, which is arguably the greatest piece of scoring ever done by a composer for a film. It's such a huge part of the emotional weight of that film, and it's always been a personal favorite of mine. It's been the one that I go back to it often. It's a piece of music that has inspired me and is something that I just can't get enough of. I listen to it, and it's just such a great piece of scoring. As is the movie itself. And this was, admittedly, I kind of wish the way it was projected was a bit dark. I think that's because it's kind of a projection on projection as opposed to just a straight up projection. But it's also because the movie's 6 years old. It's shot in a way that movies aren't shot anymore. But the fact of the matter is, it's still a beautiful movie. It's all the beauty and the intense emotional feeling of Hitchcock's film comes through. And it's a movie that really solidified itself with me today. And it's a movie that I still think more and more of and more about. This is the first time I've thought of some of the things I'm talking about now. And it's amazing that I've watched the movie at least a dozen or so times over the years, in the past 20 years or so. It still feels fresh. It still has that impact, and it has more of an impact now. And not just because of the fact that I know the film more and understand film more, understand Hitchcock more. It's because I understand more about life. I understand more about how people deal with trauma, because that's how I've had moments where I've had to deal with trauma, and it's tough to get back from that. And it's so gratifying to be able to see movies like these on the big screen. We don't really get real revivals and reissues of movies anymore. So the fact that Turn Classic Movies and Fathom Events put these on every year for certain films is always wonderful. And it's something that I'm glad that they do, because it's given me a chance to see a movie that means a great deal to me, and I'm glad that I'm able to see it on big screen for the first time. So with that being said, this is Brian Scuttle for Sonic Cinema. This is a quick take on Vertigo. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a good evening.